Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Elizabeth and I'm a holistic health and embodiment coach. I help women heal through a mind, body, and spirit approach by supporting the nervous system, gut and hormone health, self-love, embodiment, emotional healing, and reconnecting with their authentic selves. And in today's video, it's a little more personal than some of the others that I've shared, but I thought my personal story of the things that I've personally gone through and learned from may be helpful for anyone struggling with personal challenges right now, and hopefully helps to provide some guidance and maybe even a little bit of hope for the future. I know right now is a difficult time for a lot of people. Over the past several years, I've gone through seasons where it felt like life kept presenting me with the same kind of challenges. Sometimes it showed up in relationships, sometimes it showed up in my business. Sometimes it showed up through fear, self-doubt, self-abandoning, or circumstances that seemed to repeat themselves in different forms. At first, I found myself asking, why does this keep happening? And at times, things were so difficult and overwhelming for me that I found myself sometimes curled up in a ball, crying, wondering when the light at the end of the tunnel was ever going to come into view and give me any kind of hope to hold on to. But eventually, my question changed over time. Instead of asking why this was happening to me, in that particular circumstance, I began asking the question, what is it trying to teach me instead? What is the lessons that I've clearly not learned and healed yet, that it keeps presenting itself in different forms maybe until I do? This shift changed everything for me. Today, I want to explore what many spiritual traditions describe as things like karmic lessons, how reoccurring patterns may become opportunities for growth, and how moving through these experiences can help us expand into the next chapter of our lives. Whether you understand these experiences through the language of karma, soul growth, psychology, or personal development, my hope is that this conversation today helps you approach life's challenges with a greater sense of compassion, curiosity, and hope. So let's begin. First of all, what are karmic lessons, for starters? The word karma is often misunderstood. Many people think karma simply means punishment or what goes around comes around. But in traditions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, karma is more accurately understood as the law of cause and effect. Our actions, intentions, and choices create consequences that shape our future experiences. Many modern spiritual teachers extend this idea by suggesting that reoccurring life lessons may provide opportunities for growth and greater awareness. So whether or not you interpret that literally, it can be a meaningful framework for reflecting on repeating patterns in our lives. Carl Jung specifically offered a complementary psychological insight that sometimes what feels like fate may actually be a pattern we haven't yet become aware of. And without that awareness, we endlessly repeat a pattern until it becomes very clear that there is a repeating pattern going on so that we can finally do something about it and break it. So next, let's look at why patterns repeat themselves. Have you ever noticed the faces may change, but the relationship dynamics stay the same? Or perhaps you change jobs, yet somehow encounter the same kinds of conflicts there? Or you reach one particular goal only to find yourself facing another version of the same fear? Many spiritual traditions suggest that life continues presenting lessons until we respond from a new level of awareness, not because we're being punished in any way by the universe, though it can certainly feel like that when we are in the middle of a struggle, but because growth often requires repetition. Just like, for example, we don't expect to master a new skill after only one attempt at it, emotional and spiritual growth often unfolds through repeated opportunities to practice something new. So now a little more on my own journey. I want to give you a little bit more of a background. There was a season in my life where I realized I was being invited to develop a deeper sense of self-worth and stronger boundaries, although I didn't realize it at the time. At first, I kept hoping the external circumstances in my life would change, both my personal relationships and how I was treated and valued, to past employers as well. Sometimes our childhood wounds, like mine of not feeling seen, heard, or understood, and sometimes criticized, are so deeply subconscious that we may not even realize that they're there. And as Jung famously said, the patterns will direct your life as they had mine. Eventually, I had realized the deeper invitation was to change how I related to myself. That didn't happen overnight, of course. It happened over a period of, I would say, about 2 decades. Yes, 2 decades. Through many moments of reflection, uncomfortable conversations, and learning to choose myself in ways I hadn't before. When I moved through one season, it seemed another came along not long after. I was completely oblivious to the patterns, if I'm being honest, and more so the deeper wounding where it was actually stemming from, and therefore couldn't do the healing necessary because I wasn't even aware that subconscious wounds were even there in the first place. I've also had lessons in parenting when it comes to my son, who is autistic, especially when it comes to things like patience, of course, among many other things. But it is an important thing to mention here because sometimes our children come into this lifetime with us for a specific lesson we are to learn from each other for our soul growth. My son might have special needs, but one of his purposes in this life was to teach me as well as the collective, not the other way around. And boy, has he ever, in nothing but good ways. I have grown from the challenges that I have gone through with him, especially in the kind of energy that I show up in my parenting role, and therefore also realizing in my life. And as a side note, all people with special needs and sensitives alike, and there are a large amount of them on the planet right now, are here to teach humanity at this time of difficulty that sensitivity is a superpower, a guide to your internal connection, as well as to teach patience and compassion, which unfortunately seems to be lost on many these days. We are here to help and support one another, and as the current collective shifts continue, that will become even more and more clear as the years go on. So now let's look at how blocks can form. One way I like to think about spiritual blocks that you may encounter is this. Imagine you are climbing a mountain. Each lesson you integrate becomes another step upward, but when a lesson is avoided, the climb pauses. This doesn't mean you failed. It simply means there's something asking for your attention before you can continue. Sometimes the block isn't external from you, as most of mine have not been either. Sometimes it's, I don't believe I'm worthy, I'm afraid to be seen, I need everybody's approval, I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of success, I don't trust myself, and therefore I freeze and don't make any decisions, just standing at a crossroads and not taking a step forward. That last one held me up personally for far longer than I care to admit. But my spirit team would not allow me to move forward in my next stage of progress until I learned what I avoided, to acknowledge and heal it. These beliefs quietly influence our choices until we begin bringing them into a state of awareness. And many times we have to become the person who can hold the things that we want to manifest for ourselves long term, including things like wealth, true aligned love, a leadership position, etc. So now let's shift to spiritual perspectives, because many traditions echo this idea in a different language. Carl Jung described individuation as the lifelong process of becoming whole by integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of ourselves. The Buddhist teachings emphasize awareness, compassion, and releasing attachment as pathways to freedom. Edgar Cayce often spoke about the soul's ongoing evolution through choices, relationships, opportunities for spiritual growth, for example. And many people also connect this concept with astrology. A birth chart isn't necessarily something that predicts every event in your life, but some view it as a symbolic map highlighting themes, strengths, and areas of growth that may become important through a lifetime. So whether you resonate with one of these perspectives or another, they all point towards a similar idea. Life isn't only happening around us, it's also inviting something within us to grow and expand into a higher version of ourselves. So how do you recognize a lesson? Here are a few questions I often ask myself personally. What situation keeps repeating for me? What emotion keeps resurfacing? Where do I feel the most resistance coming up for me? What triggers me most deeply? What am I being invited to learn here in this circumstance? Sometimes the answer isn't obvious immediately. Honestly, oftentimes it's probably not, at least not for me. But asking the question creates space for awareness and then steps into healing and integration. So now let's discuss moving through the lesson, because here are a few practices that I want to give you that have helped me personally, and you might find them helpful as well. First, pause before reacting if you feel triggered. Journal about reoccurring patterns that you notice coming up for you. Practice nervous system regulation before making important decisions. Ask yourself questions like, what would my most healed self choose? Look for the lesson in each challenge instead of only seeing the obstacle. And I know this can be difficult. And perhaps most importantly, practice self-compassion, because healing rarely happens perfectly or even quickly. Growth usually looks like responding just a little differently than we did before. And those small moments matter. When you show up in a different energy than you did before in a situation, the circumstances tend to shift around you too. And lastly, expansion. One thing I've noticed in my own life is that after moving through a difficult lesson, there's often expansion. Not always immediately, but eventually. New opportunities come along, healthier relationships, a greater sense of peace, more confidence and resilience in yourself. And that last one I've developed in spades, if I do say. And to look at the silver lining in all of this, as incredibly difficult as it feels going through a challenge after challenge in life, especially for sensitives, it's also oddly comforting knowing that after all you've overcome and survived thus far, there's not much life can throw at you anymore that could ever break you. It's almost as though life was preparing us to hold something that we weren't quite ready for before the challenge. I no longer see challenges as signs that I'm on the wrong path or that I'm doing something wrong. More often, I ask whether they're preparing me for the next chapter, and in what way. That shift has changed how I experience difficult seasons. Expansion isn't something life gives us after we've proven ourselves worthy. It's something we gradually become capable of holding because of the person we become through the lessons we choose to integrate. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's video, it's this. Your challenges do not define you. They may instead be shaping you. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs we experience begin with the hardest questions. The moments that feel like setbacks may actually become turning points that help you grow into someone who's stronger, wiser, and more aligned with who you truly are. Whether you call it karma, soul growth, psychological healing, or simply life experience, every challenge offers an opportunity to respond with greater awareness. And every time you choose awareness over autopilot, you begin changing the direction of your life. And if this conversation today resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know, have you ever experienced a reoccurring life lesson that, looking back, helped you grow in some way? What did it teach you? I would love to try to support you in any way I can, and I read every comment. If you're looking for support as you navigate your own healing journey, I'd love to invite you to explore my resources in the comments and the description box below. Together, we work on nervous system regulation, embodiment, self-love, gut and hormone health, and creating lasting transformation from the inside out. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a weekly video, and share it with somebody who may need this message today. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you found some value in the wisdom that I've taken from my own personal journey. And remember, sometimes the lesson isn't standing in the way of your path. Sometimes the lesson is the path. And this is your weekly reminder to do something today that brings you joy. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.